One of the top stories on the continent this Wednesday, Kenyans are now waiting for the outcome of yesterday's election, which is expected in about a week's time. Raila Odinga and William Ruto in a tight race to replace incumbent Uhuru Kenyatta. Now, polls have officially closed following an intense campaign dominated by debates around the rising cost of living, unemployment and corruption in the country. So what happens now? Let's unpack the story with Professor Mukum Mbaku from Weber State University, who joins us via our video link this morning. Prof, it's great to have you with us on the program. So many really celebrating what was a day without incident in many respects, but the worry now, of course, given what happened in 2017, is what happens now.
Well, I think that Kenyans have already done very well, because there were rumors before the elections started on Tuesday that there might be some significant violence. And since there hasn't been any, I think that they've already achieved a lot, and we are now looking to the next stage, and that is what would happen after the results start coming in. The race is very tight. It's very early to call, and I think that's one of the things that is bothering a lot of people who are looking at the elections, primarily because if the results are very, very close, there is a probability that one or the other party may start asking for a recount, or thinking about the prospect of a runoff, which might create problems in terms of trust in the system.
I mean, that's the issue insofar as the Electoral Commission is concerned as well. Past elections, we saw allegations of vote ringing. There were protracted court battles insofar as the results were concerned, bouts of violence on the streets, and of course, the murder of that head of Kenya's Electoral Commission, head of technology, Chris Msando, that shocking murder, which to this day remains a mystery, that happened in 2017.
Yes, I think that one of the problems Kenya has had in the past is that you've had these situations in which individuals associated with the political system have either disappeared or have been killed, and the government has not been able to provide people with information on what happened and why. And I think that the murder of the head of the electoral system and the fact that up to today the government has not been able to solve the case definitively creates a lot of problems in the minds of many people. And one of the things that we have seen with Kenyan elections is that even though the two parties that are campaigning for this, the two main parties, of course, the two main competitors for the election came up with platforms, it is always important to remember that these platforms, for example, unemployment, inflation, corruption, we have to remember that ethnic loyalty remains a very significant factor in the back there, and that has to do with the fact that the two political alliances are not actually political parties per se. They are not permanent arrangements. These are just temporary arrangements that the people, Odinga and Ruto, put together for the purposes of the election. So even though we see corruption, unemployment, inflation as important issues, it is difficult to determine if these issues are actually issues that are acceptable to members of the coalition, or are these coalitions just, or these alliances just put together as a way to, for the two candidates, the two main candidates, to attract votes.
Yeah.
And so what we need to be thinking about is that there is still a possibility that problems could occur, primarily because of the fact that in the background, ethnicity remains a very salient point in terms in Kenyan elections.
Yeah, I mean the chairperson of the Independent Electoral Commission in Kenya, even though he has been trying to reassure the public of this vote. He's also said that his staff continue to be intimidated even in these elections. But, Prof, I want to talk to you about another issue. Martha Karua, now in line to become possibly the first woman vice president in Kenya. The significance of that in a country where female candidates are often physically attacked.
Well, I think the decision by Mr. Odinga to select her as a candidate may have appeared at the beginning to be an opportunistic selection in order to attract Kikuyu votes, which are very critical for anyone who wants to win the election. But if you do a more thorough analysis, you might discover that it was a very wise choice, primarily because she has been a very important person in Kenyan government. She was, before this time, Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs. She's a very accomplished individual in herself, not just an accomplished woman, but also an accomplished Kenyan. And so her choice is very good for Kenyan politics. And there is a possibility that if Odinga wins and goes on to become president, she might eventually become a very strong candidate for the presidency itself. Yeah. And that would be a very important development, not just for Kenya or for East Africa, but also for Africa itself. And I think that this makes Mr. Odinga's ticket a very strong one in terms of governing Kenya moving on. So I think that was a very good choice on his part and on the part of his political alliance.
Yeah, voting ending, Prof, as we said there, but many reports I'm seeing now saying that it could take weeks, perhaps even months before a new president is sworn in. It's certainly a story we're watching. Professor Mukum Mbaku is from Weber State University in Utah in the U.S. as we continue to watch Kenya going to the polls.